So now we have done with prompt engineering. The next part we are going to look at understanding embeddings in Azure OpenAI Service. So we are going to look at what embeddings are with Azure OpenAI Service. We saw some models which are related to embeddings, but we need to understand what embeddings really mean before we can start discussing about that. Embedding is nothing but it's a specific format of data representation which machine learning models and algorithms they can easily use. So for instance, like embedding will be an information that is dense representation of a semantic meaning of a piece of text. So if you take each embedding, it is a vector of floating point numbers so that the distance between two embeddings in the vector space will be correlated with the similarity between two inputs. Suppose if you take an example, right, two text that they are similar, then their vector representation should also be similar. When I say vector representation, converting the text into floating point numbers. So normally what you will be doing is you will be taking that in terms of take the text and you will use the mechanism to convert that into vectors. And we'll look at how do you go about doing that. Microsoft offers the second and third generation of embedding models. Like you have got a text embedding 3 large, text embedding 3 small, and you have the text embedding EDA 002. So these are the different embedding models that Microsoft support. And we'll be looking at what these embedding models really can do for you. So when we talk about the embedding models in here, so pretty much you will get to see what they can really offer for you. The text embedding 3 large, this is the latest and the most capable embedding model. And keep in mind, you won't be able to upgrade between the embedding models right now. So if you want to move from text ADA to text embedding large, you need to generate new embeddings basically. So that's something to keep in mind. So you have the third generation embedding models that are available, like the text embedding large. As I said, it is the most recent and the latest embedding model. It provides the ability for you to just generate the vectors that you are looking for. And also like the embedding models, like the large and the small models, which are the third generation ones, they offer better average multi-language retrieval response. So when we looked at the Miracle benchmark or the MTEB benchmark, like they excelled really well, which is the third generation embedding models. Sometimes in some scenarios, you can use the text embeddings EDA 002. So you can use them in order to just get better embeddings out of the text that we are using. So what does embeddings really do? So we saw the different type of embedding models, but what embeddings really do is if you take a text, it will convert them into what we call it as vectors. And these are into floating point numbers. It will store that. And basically, if you have two text and if you want to find the similarity of the two text, instead of comparing the text, you will be comparing the vector representation of the text, which is nothing but the numbers. So Azure OpenAI embedding models, they are specifically created to be good in particular set of tasks. So there are different set of tasks that you can basically apply. So for instance, you can say, I want to do similarity embeddings. Similarity embeddings are nothing but you can check the semantic similarity between two or more pieces of text. So when I say semantic similarity, text similarity is like if I say look for a word annual report. Okay. So it is going to exactly look for whether the other document has got the word annual report. But semantic similarity is it is going to add some context to say annual report is actually created by this person. So it was going to look at other angles of the data and it is going to identify the similarities. Text search embeddings is basically to look at how long the documents that are relevant to a short query. So you can ask a short query and it is going to help you to measure whether the long documents that you have got, are they relevant to the question that you are asking. And code search embeddings, they are basically for embedding code snippets. And when you ask for natural language queries, like you will be able to embed code like your GitHub Copilot and things, they are using the code search embeddings in there. So basically embeddings make it easier for you to do machine learning on large inputs where you will be representing the words in a as vectors, and which means if you are using vectors, it is going to make things really easy. So these are some of the tasks that you can do with embedding models, which is checking for similarity between two text. You can do whether large documents are relevant to a short query that you are asking. You can also do code search embeddings in there. So this is how it works. So you take a user input, which is going to be in plain text. You convert that into vectors using embedding, and then you will get a result, and then you will be looking at it will be used to find out the most semantically similar content. So that's why vectorizing the data is really important, because the more you vectorize the data, it is going to make it really easy to identify how related the content are in that scenario. So the next one we are going to look at is what we call it as cosine similarity. So if you take the Azure OpenAI embeddings, right? So they rely on what we call it as a cosine similarity, which is basically a mathematical principle, and it is used to compute the similarity between the documents and the query. So we talked about, right, you can ask a question, and if you want to find all the relevant documents associated with that query, basically the embeddings will use the cosine similarity to determine that. This is one way that is more powerful to use it, but there is also an alternative way which you can use, where you can count the number of words between the documents, but unfortunately that particular approach will not scale. And also, like, you may find some common words are detected even they are totally disparate topics, and that's the reason, like, cosine similarity is what is the approach or mathematical approach that we use with the Azure OpenAI embedding. So if you take Azure OpenAI embeddings, it uses the cosine similarity mathematical perspective to identify whether two documents are far apart from each other or they are related to each other. So how do you generate embeddings with Azure OpenAI? So this is key part in here. So you need to get to learn about how do you assign the cosine similarity with Azure OpenAI. So which we can basically do that with a variety of principles. And we are going to look at the principle that we are going to use to do that. So how do I get the embeddings? So basically, if you look at this curl command, so basically you are asking what is your open AI embedding resource. So you have to deploy the embedding model, call the embedding model, you provide the API key, and then you provide the input, which is basically the sample document that needs to be converted to vectors. And that's what you do. So basically, if you want an embedding vector for a piece of text, this is what the curl command that you will be passing. So this is a quick example of how to use embeddings. And here, this is a piece of C# code that shows to you in terms of how you can generate embeddings. Similar to the curl command allows you to do that directly. But here you just specify your endpoint, your API key, Azure OpenAI API key. You provide your credentials, you create an OpenAI instance. And here, this is the deployment name that I have provided. So here, as I told you, similar to how you created your own instance of GPT-4, you can create a deployment of the embedding model also. So let me quickly pull that through just to showcase to you. Normally, what I said was any open AI models, if you want to use, you first go and create a deployment. So here I can go and create a new deployment. I'll go and select the model. So here I can use the embedding ADA 002. And then I can go and say text embedding ADA 002, my instance, and then I can go ahead and create it. So now this is the embedding deployment that I have got, right? So this is the name, what I gave is what I will be providing in here. Then I will provide my input string. Now if I call the embedding endpoint, it is going to convert my string into floating point numbers, or what we call it as vectors. So this is really important. So if you want to vectorize your data for a specific input, you can use embeddings in order to vectorize it and provide it back to you. So this is how you will be going and doing it. So you can use curl command, you can use C#, you can use Python or PHP, any programming languages that you can invoke a REST API, and you can generate the vector space for a text using the embeddings model.